This is Algebra 2 at Trig, 8C.2. We're going to apply the law of cosines. But as a bit of a review, law of sines we used for angle, side, angle, 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 side, and side, side, angle. Now, I don't particularly memorize it in that pattern. I use law of sines when I have two bits of information for the same letter. When I have the angle and the opposite side, then I can use law of sines. That happens in these situations. Now, what if we have a situation that we don't have that? Like side, angle, side, where we have two side values and the included angle. I don't have the opposite side. So I have to use a different method, and that method is going to be called law of cosines. And then, of course, if you have all three sides and no angles, you're not going to have the angle and the opposite side. So you have to use law of cosines. Here are the three formulas for law of cosines. We have one when we look from the A's point of view. Another one when we look from the B's point of view. And the pattern here, if we start with C, so C squared, the two other sides we haven't been talking about besides C would be A squared and B squared, minus 2 times those two values, cosine of C. For the other two patterns, it follows the same thing. If you start with the A, the other two letters are going to be B and C, and angle A. Same thing goes on for B, and now we've just done C. So when we calculate these out, we need to know that cosine can find obtuse angles, but sine cannot. In this situation, for this problem, we don't have that issue because we already have our obtuse angle. So C is 108. I don't have side C. That's why I can't use law of sines, because I don't have the opposite side. I have side A, so we'll call that angle A, so this is side A. This must be angle B, so this could be side B, because your side is opposite of the angle. Now, this is why we can't use law of sines. I don't have two bits of information for the same letter. So we're going to start with C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2 times AB cosine C. Why am I using that as one of my three options from up here? Is because we have the A side, we have the B side, we have the A and B side, and I have the cosine, I have the angle value. So I have all the necessary values. I'm looking for C squared. My A is 22. My B is 15. 2 times my A is 22 and my B is 15. Cosine of 108. So I have a value. I have one unknown. I have all the other values. So we're going to go to our calculator now and type this in. So we have 22 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 22 times 15 times the cosine of 108. You need to be sure you're in degree mode. And you type in all your information, and we get 112 or 912.95. So c squared is going to equal 912.95. So of course this is c squared. We don't want c times c. We need to have just the length of c. So we need to do the square root of 912.95.
Are we allowed to do decimals?
When we're calculating this is our rounded number to 2 decimal spots. But when we take the square root, we're not going to type in, definitely not 913, not even 912.95. I'm going to use the answer, the previous answer, the A and S button. That's the appropriate value to type in, and you get 30.22. So C is going to be 30.22, and we've found that side, which is right here. Now, since we've used law of cosines once to find that missing side, now we can use law of sines because we have 2 bits of information for the same letter. We have the side of C and we have the angle C. We have side A and now we are looking for angle A. So that is 30.22 over the sine of 108 and 22 over the sine of my unknown value. So when I cross multiply, I'm going to get 30.22 times the sine of A to equal 22 times the sine of 108. Then I'm going to divide by 30.22. And the sine of A should be a decimal less than 1. So I have 22 times the sine of 108. And we're dividing that by 30.22. And I have a decimal that's less than 1. So 0.6923. We know from our knowledge of the unit circle that sine, the distance from the origin, cannot be greater than 1. So the measurement of angle A is going to be the sine inverse of 0.6923. So we use our calculator and we do second sine, so we get the -1 to show. And then I would suggest, don't type in 0.7, that's for sure. I would suggest to do all 4 digits, or even better, do your second answer. The answer button is down here on the negative. The A and S is right there. We hit enter and we get 43.82. And that's a degree. So we have 43.82. Now we're looking for one last angle. Our last angle would be angle B, and that can be found from 180 minus 108 minus 43.82. So 180 minus 108 minus, you could say previous answer if you want. You could type in 43.82. That won't make a difference since we're subtracting. Whichever way you like to do it. And we'll get a degree value of 28.18. You should have 3 things circled in your work. And I always like to write those up in the picture also, so you know exactly that everything's been solved for. Okay, this next one. It's a U-try. So pause the video, work on it on your own, come back, see how it goes. So starting out our triangle, we have a 48-degree angle. That is angle B. And then we're not quite sure what the rest of the triangle exactly looks like. Side A, we'll call this one A. So this must be angle A because they got to be across from each other. This must be angle C because that's the last one that we have. So side C has to be over here. So this information is side, angle, side. We can't use law of sines because we don't have the angle and the opposite side for the same letter. So we're going to have to use, to solve for B, we're going to have to use B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of B. So looking for B squared, I have 8 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 8 times 10 cosine of 48. Now we can type this whole line into the calculator. We have 8 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 8 times 10 times the cosine of 48. So type your whole line right into the calculator, and you're going to get a 5694. But that's a B squared value. You need to take the square root of 5694. And remember, we don't type in values. We use the A and S button whenever possible. And we have 7.55. So now we can use law of sines by thinking B over the sine of B equals A over the sine of A. So I have 7.55 over the sine of 48 equals 8 over the sine of A. We don't know what the sine of A is. So we're going to cross multiply. 7.55 times the sine of A is going to equal 8 times the sine of 48. And I'll be dividing by 7.55. So my sine of A is going to equal a decimal of 8 times the sine of 48. And we're dividing that by 7.55. We get 78/74. Notice how the sine is less than 1. That's always going to happen. So to find the measurement of angle A, we need to do sine inverse of 0.7874. So we do second sine of our answer. Don't type in 0.8, that's for sure. You could do 4 digits, but I would suggest the A and S number, and we get 5195. And that's a degree. Then to figure out the last angle, the measurement of angle C is going to be 180. minus the 48 that we know of, minus the 51 that we calculated. So we have 180 minus 48 minus 51, 95. And that's going to give us 80.05. That's a degree. On the flip side, notice what's different with this. We don't know if this is obtuse. We don't know if it's acute. I would just start out with a basic triangle. Side A, opposite side A is 19. Opposite side B is 26. Opposite side C is 31. Now, we don't know any of the angles. And one of the angles could be bigger than 90. And if you think about your knowledge of the unit circle, you know that sine only gives you values in those two quadrants. You won't get an obtuse answer out of sine. So it's going to be important for us to use law of cosine to find the largest angle. So which angle up here is the largest? The angle across from the longest side is the largest. So you have to find that one first using cosine. So c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of c. Now people make, this is a common mistake on how you do the algebra. Because we have 31 squared, we have 19 squared, 26 squared, 2 times 19 times 26, and cosine of c. A lot of people make a mistake and they calculate out the whole squaring and timesing by 2 altogether. You can't do that. You need to come across and subtract your 19 squared, subtract your 26 squared, and you have to leave the 2 times 19, 26 by itself. So if we want to be calculator dependent, we can go to 31 squared, and we're going to minus 19 squared, and we're also going to minus 26 squared, and we get a negative 76. Don't be scared about the negative number. It should always be negative. Because we're going to have, when we divide, it's not true. This could be positive, I guess. And then you would get a negative answer, which would be an obtuse answer. Anyway, we're going to divide by 2, 19, 26. And divide by 2 times 19, 26. So we're going to divide, parenthesis, very important, negative 2 times 19 times 26. You need to be sure that you're dividing by all those multiplied together. And that gives you 0.0769 is the cosine of C. So the measurement of angle C is going to be cosine inverse of 0.0769. Cosine inverse gives you 85.59. 85.59. So that's our angle C. So that was not obtuse. We kind of knew that because our value here was positive. That means it's in the first quadrant. That means it's acute. Now we have that. Now we have 2 bits of information for the same letter. We can use law of sines. So we have 31 over the sine of 85.59. and we're solving for the angle, perhaps A, so sine of A. We'll cross multiply, so we get 31 times the sine of A to equal 19 times the sine. It's a little tight in here. 58, 59. And we're going to divide by 31. So the sine of A is going to be 19 times the sine of 58, 59. And we divide that by 31. That gives us 52, 31. And we do sine inverse of that. Okay, there could be a mistake in here. This is 85, not 58. Got to keep your numbers straight. 85, 59. So in my calculations, I need to be sure to use that. 19 times the sine of 85, 59. That's better. Divided by 31. That's going to give me, sorry about that, 6111 actually. So my sine inverse of 0.6111 is the measurement of angle A. And that's going to give me a 37.67 degrees. So that's angle A, 37.67. And then to find my last angle, the measurement of angle B is going to be 180 minus what we already know. So that's 180 minus 85.59 minus 37.67. Oh boy. So what did we end up doing? We had three sides given to us. We used law of cosines for that to find the missing angle. We had to subtract the squares and divide by 2 times 1926. You have to divide that. We do cosine inverse to give us our first angle, do law of sines to find our other angle, and subtract to find our third angle. All right, you can go ahead and try the next one. Pause the video, give it a shot. So I'm plugging in my 14 squared and my 9 squared. 2 times 14 times c, cosine of my unknown. I take my 16 squared and minus 14 squared minus 9 squared. That gives me negative 21. I'm going to divide by that whole amount. Not the cosine b part, of course. And I divide, got to use parentheses. We get 0.833, 0.0833. That's the cosine of b. So when I do cosine of b inverse, I get 85.22. So that's my largest angle. So then we would use law of sines to figure out the next angle. either angle you want at this point. That won't matter. So that would be 14 times the sine of 8522 divided by 16. Cosine inverse gives us the angle to be 60.69. And our last angle is 180 minus 85 minus 60.69. 180 minus the angles that we have gives us 3409. So that's our last angle.
I pictured myself in her shoes if I was like that.
For our next question, we use 120, 150, 175. We're solving for the largest angle. We know the largest angle is across from the longest side. So I use my law of cosines to solve for the angle. I'm going to subtract them over and then divide.
Yes, yes.
So here we found out that 79.96. On our last question at the bottom, we were trying to figure out the efficiency of the walk. We're going to find the step of angle B. I did a little shortcut. I took our angle squared minus our other two values squared divided by -2 in our values, found the cosine inverse to identify the angle of 124.